Would it interest you to know that the average lifespan in the United States is 77.7 years? That is 28,379 days. And all of us have experiences that force us to stop and think, how am I going to spend those days? You're about to hear an amazing story of one of those days and how it impacted the thousands of days that came after. It was Christmas 2004. My husband and I were visiting his family in his home city of Madras, India. Madras is a city of 4 million people on the southeastern coast of India, right along the Bay of Bengal. Early morning, Sunday, December 26th. We're awakened from a deep sleep by a pounding on the apartment door and someone shouting. Of the 5 of us in the apartment, only my mother-in-law and I made it to the door. I bruised my hand as I was fumbling for the key to open the deadbolt and swing open the heavy wooden door. And it was the security guard. "Nilanadakum!" he shouted at us in Tamil, which I didn't understand. My mother-in-law translated, "Earthquake, get out!" I rushed next door to the apartment where my brother-in-law and his family were staying. I pounded on the door. I rang the bell. "Wake up, wake up!" Finally, he came to the door, all bleary-eyed. I said, "There's an earthquake, we've got to go now." He shouted for his wife, she grabbed the baby, we rushed out into the hallway, and the entire family hurried down 3 flights of stairs. Downstairs, we stood with 15 of the neighbors from the 4 other apartments in the building, and we wondered what was going on. One man said, "This is crazy. Madras doesn't get earthquakes." About 30 minutes passed, and it seemed like nothing more was happening. No one felt any more tremors. And so my father-in-law said, "Let's go back upstairs now." So we did. We had breakfast. And I was just putting a birthday cake for a family friend into the oven when a young boy came running into the apartment screaming for his mother, who was helping out in the kitchen. "Amma, kada pongi varada!" She dropped what she was doing and she ran out the door with him. The translation, the sea is coming. My husband rushed upstairs to the roof to try to get a better view of what was happening. And when he came back downstairs, the only thing he would say was, "There's some flooding out there. We better stay here." But just then, we heard some of the upstairs neighbors go past the door, and they said, "We're feeling more tremors. We're getting out. Come on, let's go." And so for the second time that day, we all hurried down the stairs. Outside, we were shocked to find that the main road was filled with dirty seawater and the level was rising. People came running in the streets, telling wild stories of massive waves that had swept away their huts that were built right on the beach. My brother-in-law said, "How can there be water here? We're more than 1 mile from the beach." Standing there, watching that water rise, I was thinking, first an earthquake, now a flood. Has nature gone mad? Is this the end of the world? Are we going to die here? And then I thought, I'm too young to die. I haven't even taken my PMP exam yet. It was like starring in one of those Hollywood disaster movies where everything goes wrong. But there was no Bruce Willis coming in at the last minute to save us. I have no memory of how much time passed, but eventually, just as the water got to the crest of our driveway, it stopped and began to subside. It was like the parting of the Red Sea slowly went away. There was confusion and panic in the streets, but my mother-in-law refused to believe that evacuation from the neighborhood was necessary. She said, if we get flooded upstairs on the 3rd floor, there is no place in the city that will be safe to run to. And she worried, who will prevent looting if the entire building is empty? Once again, after 30 minutes, when nothing else seemed to be happening, my father-in-law said, let's go back upstairs. And we did. And I wondered, what's coming next? It was only once the power had been restored that we learned from the television news that this had been a tsunami. I didn't know what a tsunami was, but it had been caused by a massive earthquake off the coast of Indonesia. The rest of that week was a blur of fear and uncertainty and bad news. Nearby Marina Beach, where my husband had planned to go jogging some morning, was littered with overturned cars. And the force of those waves against that long, flat beach had swept fishermen and their boats out to sea. In a few short hours, 8,000 people died in the state. In the country, 12,000 people. And in the region, an estimated 230,000 people lost their lives. Now, we were blessed, lucky, call it what you will, to have escaped unscathed when so many thousands did not. And anyone who's gone through an experience like that, a tragedy, a natural disaster, a serious illness, you come to the point where you ask, I survived. What am I supposed to do now? Thursday, December 30th. The TV news reporter said, another tsunami is reported to be hitting our area later today. Be prepared. But my mother-in-law refused to give in to that panic. Instead, she and I joked, what would be the best thing to wear if we're forced to evacuate? A skirt or pants? What would be easier to wade through water? Sandals that are open-toed but could fall off your feet? Or sneakers, which would get wet but they wouldn't fall off your feet? I said, we should eat a lot of chocolate. It's always a solution, because if we have to die, at least I want to die with a smile on my face. Thankfully, that one turned out to be a false alarm. But I slept with my sweatpants on under my nightgown, just in case. After a few more days, I stopped watching the news. It was too graphic, too real. And 10 days later, my husband and I came back to the United States. But the images from that tsunami were stamped on my brain. What I had felt and seen forced me to face the reality that life can be short, much shorter than 28,000 days. How depressing. And yet, eventually, that reality compelled me to think about how I was spending my days. Now, I always like to believe that I was living a responsible, productive, good life. But on that day, I decided to live my life with more intention and purpose. At the time, I was working at a corporate job, and it was okay. In fact, I was in line for promotion. But I had felt a nagging dissatisfaction for some time. I began to ask myself, where can my dreams take me? What could I do if I really tried? How could I spend my days using my strengths, using more of what I like to do? And so I began to explore other options. 18 months later, I quit my job, and I started my own business as a professional speaker. Through my speaking, coaching, and training, I help people break out of their comfort zones and become more successful than they believed possible. I help them improve their communication and leadership skills so they can share their knowledge and their stories. And I feel like it's a good use of my time. So what about you? Who are you? What are your dreams? How do you want to spend your 28,000 days? Is there something you want to do in life that you haven't made time for yet? What are you waiting for?